Hey guys, Tyler with Independence Overland, and today we're talking about something that I'm surprisingly excited to talk about. Several years ago, I want to say it was probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was looking online for diesel heaters because as soon as I got wind of these things, I was like, I'm going to build one of those for myself, because you couldn't go online and buy things for a couple $100 and have a diesel heater at camp that was that easy to use. The Chinese diesel heater, if they were out there, we weren't seeing them like we are now. Now it is just so crazy how cheap they've gotten and how available they are. Usually you have to make some modifications to one of the diesel heaters just to make it not catch the grass on fire, for instance. The other thing about the cheap Chinese diesel heaters is that the diesel leaks everywhere. The one that I have been using up until this point, whenever I carry it, and it was in the FJ, I would put it in multiple contractor trash bags, like super thick trash bags, because diesel would get everywhere. So these are the LF Bros diesel heaters. This is the N2 and this is the N2 Pro. LF Bros reached out to me and they wanted to know if they could send me both of these heaters. One is more affordable by far, and this one's a little more expensive but has more features. So I think their main goal is just that their brand gets seen and you guys see that there's better options out there. This is the cheaper heater that's more cost relatable to some of the other cheaper Chinese stuff on Amazon. And this one's actually pretty expensive. This thing's almost $600. So on the box, I thought it was kind of cool. This one says Darth Vader on it. I don't know if Disney's gonna love that, but I thought it was pretty funny. I've done a bunch of testing with them already, using them to heat the little Mission Overland trailer that I have out here. It already has its own heater, but it was just a good test because it's been getting into the freezing temperatures already. First and foremost, one of the things that I have to give these guys credit on is that when you see a Chinese heater online, they all look like they're decent, and then once you get them, they're so disappointing. It's kind of like when you see a hamburger on a McDonald's ad and then you actually get it and it's like a squash patty. That's pretty much how diesel heaters are. These diesel heaters are actually very well built from what I can tell. The thing about LF Bros too, I did some research. My correspondent does speak pretty good English, and I'm sorry I even have to say that, but it is a big thing with some of these brands. You can't figure out how they work in the control unit, and if you contact customer support, you can't understand what's going on. These guys were pretty easy to communicate with and to help me understand some of the parts of their product. If you go onto some of their social media, you can find that these are actually being built in their factory. They are building their own actual heating units. This whole thing is in their facility. This is the best built portable diesel heater that I've personally put hands on. And yeah, I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, what about the planar units and stuff like that? The problem with the other, like Russian manufactured or Canadian manufactured or wherever they're manufactured, the ones that you see in Pelican cases and stuff, the big problem with those is that the tank is mounted on the outside of the thing. They're not very easy to situate inside of a vehicle and to lash down and stuff. That's a huge drawback, and I do not know why some of those places have not come up with a better design yet. I built one of those and right away I was just like, oh, this isn't a good design at all. And also it's kind of like it wants to tip over. I don't know if the professionally built ones want to tip over, but this as an all-in-one unit is a better design than anything that I've seen yet. The one I built in a front runner box, it was pretty cool. It was low profile. You could stack it with other boxes. That was neat, but still it had more of a footprint than this does. These are a very efficient use of space, and they got a 5-liter container fuel tank on them. And then the big thing with the fuel tank is it is leak proof. Let me just flip that sucker right onto my stainless here if it's gonna drip at all. The cheap model, the expensive model, they're leak proof. My biggest fear on a lot of these is them just turning off in the middle of the night because they are built so cheaply, especially the really affordable ones. They're just junk, man. The way they're built, it's just, they work, but how long are they gonna work for? This thing has not dripped one drop yet, and it is almost full. It's got like 4 liters in it rather than 5. So on the N2 here, the control unit's built into the top. So on this one, you can set how much power you want it to be putting out between 1.4 and 5 kilowatts. And so this doesn't have altitude compensation, but if you guys are over in like the Ozarks or something like that, this will be a good option for you because you don't really need the altitude compensation below like 6,000 to 7,000 feet really. They'll still work in higher altitudes, like 6,000, 7,000 feet is what I'm talking, but it'll just have less power output. As something like this can work up to, I think it's like 18,000 feet. They both have this set up to where the handles fold down, which is very nice, so they can fold flat. This is an aluminum housing, and it's obviously just a beautiful setup. I should have shined up the metal here before this. The black one is just cool as hell looking, and then the white one has the same quality housing. The housing on both of them is identical. One of the things with the controllers is it does come with a whole manual for the controller that you can understand. It is very easy to use the controllers on these. They're not overly complicated. You don't have to go in and mess with a bunch of stuff to make it work at high altitudes. It's automatic. As with this one, It's a very simple controller as well. There's literally an on button. You make some adjustments. It's as simple as that. It just works, and it works pretty well. There's certain things that apply to diesel heaters in general, and not just these ones, the higher end ones as well, is diesel heaters have a soot buildup that happens, and most of them need to be taken apart and cleaned out every year. One way to avoid that is to run them on full blast as often as possible. So when you look at something like a planar unit, they're usually a 2 kilowatt output. These are a 5 kilowatt output. It's much better with a diesel heater to have a smaller heater that you run at a higher output than it is to have a bigger diesel heater and run it at a lower output. The reason for that is the lower output heat settings will build up soot inside of the heater units. All the Chinese ones, for the most part, that I've seen are a 5 kilowatt to an even 8 kilowatt, which is just way overboard for what most of us are using it for. Rooftop tent, a little tiny like Go Fast camper. A 2 kilowatt should be plenty for that. And then you're better off because you can just run it on high all the time. And that's honestly probably going to be enough to heat pretty much any little wedge camper. But with a 5 kilowatt like this thing is going to have a few penalties, especially using the thermostat mode. This one, since it doesn't have a thermostat, it just has a power setting that you select. So if you were to select the lowest power setting on this, 1.4 kilowatts, and pump it into that alu cab, that's going to be too much heat for that alu cab for sure. Even if it's snowing outside, if it's 20 degrees, it's such a small space. In that situation, I'm probably going to want to unzip one of the zippers a little bit to let some of that heat actually out, which is kind of a bummer because then you get like cold giraffes and stuff like that coming in. So with something like this that has a thermostat, the thermostat is wired, so you have to run that up to your tent. So the problem with the thermostat on something like this, it's a 5 kilowatt unit, is that there's going to be a trade-off, because with something like a rooftop tent, it's going to want to turn on and then it's going to shut off. So you're going to use more power. Let's say it's only 35 degrees out and it's not actually freezing. So your tent's not rapidly cooling down like it would be in 10-degree temperatures. And it actually allows the heater to fully shut off. Then every time it starts back up, it needs that 10 or 11 amps that we're talking about. So there will be a penalty of using more energy to get it going throughout the night, and you'll use up more of that. The upside is that you're going to use less fuel because it sees when it needs to shut down. If this was a 2 kilowatt heater, then you could go down to like a 500 kilowatt, which I feel is more useful. And then when it gets really cold, you turn it up to 2000 and it's going to burn off that soot as it goes. So a heater like these at 5 kilowatts is overkill for sure. But there's an upside to that as well. If you have something like an awning or an awning room or multiple tents or something like that. I tried it a long time ago with the 2 kilowatt system. My friend Jesse can attest that did not work at all. But with a 5 kilowatt, I mean, this is a lot of heat output. So whether you're trying to heat 2 tents or if you have like the awning wall kit for your awning setup, it's not going to make that whole space warm, of course, because there's air leaks everywhere. But you could actually probably increase the temperature just a little bit, especially if it's blowing on you and your family or something. The other downside of having a 5 kilowatt unit is it's going to use more fuel than something like a 2 kilowatt unit. And this thing also, for like an alu-cab canopy camper or a canopy cabin, for instance, those are big aluminum campers and they're going to just suck cold in all the time. If you have something like this, it'll heat that space no problem. This will not have trouble keeping up with any little truck camper, that's for sure. So obviously the one thing that I'm confused about with these is the heater size. Companies like this need to focus more on a 2000 and have that option. And even something like this with the N2 Pro, you could do a 2000, make it slightly cheaper, and it's just less heat output. And I think that would fit a lot more people, and it would probably make the whole unit a little bit cheaper as well. So I just want to show you guys these on the bench, and now next weekend we're going to get into these things out in the field, and there might even be a little bit of snow on the ground. So LF Bros didn't actually send me a direct email right away just being like, hey, will you review this? It was actually my buddy Jeff Batenga of Thrifty Overlander, and he actually sent me an email and he was like, hey man, I don't know if you're interested in a diesel heater, but I've come across a product that is actually very impressive and you should check it out. So both of these come with a wireless remote. This is an on-off switch. So if it were to turn off in the middle of the night for whatever reason, you can try to turn it back on without having to get out of your truck, or if it's just getting too hot up there in the tent, then you can turn it off if you need to, or turn it down. I don't like that this controller is on top of the unit. I imagine they did that because that's where they had room to put it, but water or snow could accumulate on top of that. And like on a day like today where the water is coming off the tent because the snow's melting, that could go right into that control unit and cause some problems. So also on the N2, what I've noticed is that the exhaust that comes with it is kind of this flexi pipe here, which I see that I melted on something. I don't know what I melted on. Anyway, but it comes with a pretty basic, what you'd expect, little muffler here, and all this stuff just goes together. It comes with an extension pipe. And that is that. So on the N2, it only has 2 studs where you plug your power to on the back. You can use the adapter that it comes with, which is a 12-volt adapter. And what's kind of nice about that it comes with them is, I know with some power stations, they won't have the amperage on the cigarette lighter port to actually keep that heater, or to start that heater up, because on startup, they take so much power. So with that adapter, you can actually work around that. You plug it into AC, then you won't have a problem, because your little power pack will be able to do that, assuming you're using one of those. So that is where you plug in power. And then it also comes with a 12-volt just cut wire. It doesn't come with a cigarette lighter port. You got to wire your own. The cigarette lighter is actually a poor answer for trying to power some of these, so that's probably why it doesn't include one. It's more designed for being hardwired into something. So you have a window that tells you how much diesel you actually still have in here. On the side over here, it has a conversion chart that will show you the Celsius to Fahrenheit, which I think is kind of goofy, because with modern technology, I do think that they could just put a mode in there where you switch it, it goes to Fahrenheit. But I also understand that most of the world is using Celsius, so it is what it is. Okay, so jumping over here to the N2 Pro. Just like the N2 does, it has the 2 studs on the back, but that's an optional thing. This one actually comes with power that you can screw into the front of it, so it's a little bit easier to utilize. So I'm gonna plug that in. They got a nice little twist lock, and then power. And that is also a little twist lock. So now you have a portable thermostat. So this one obviously has the 2 ports on the front. It has the same power studs on the back, but it also has the option of plugging it in up here. This one also comes with a 110 port, so you can use it with your power box if you want. I was using it with the cigarette lighter port. It happens that this e-taker battery will power this thing off the 12-volt cigarette lighter plug. A lot of power stations have issues with that, because on startup, they draw a lot of power. Usually they're only gonna take like 1 to 2.5 amps while they're running, but on startup, they're gonna take like 10 to some even 15 just to get the glow plug going and get everything moving. And then once they get hot and they're producing hot air, they don't need to do that anymore. So this one with its thermostat, this one has the same mode as that one does, where you can just select a heat, or you can go into thermostat mode. One thing about these heaters that I also need to cover is that the N2 is very quiet. And I'll run them here in just a second so you can hear just how quiet this thing is. It's pretty amazing. This heater it's not quiet. It is like you can't hear it pumping. Usually with a diesel heater, you have that constant click. It is a dead silent unit. It is really amazing. So I'm gonna fire this thing up while we're standing here, and I'm gonna turn it on, and I'm gonna turn it on full power. So we'll be able to hear this thing fire up, and I'll put my other mic on here in a second so you can actually hear this thing. So now that I've heard these back to back, the N2 is just as quiet as far as the fuel pump goes, but I do feel like the heater itself makes a little bit more noise. They're both very, very quiet heaters. One other thing with this particular heater is it comes with things that are a little bit of higher quality. Like the heater itself is actually a different unit. I talked to them about that because I was curious. It has almost a pound more of aluminum built into the heater itself, which is apparently going to help with the efficiency. The N2 Pro also has an upgraded combustion chamber. There's something different in there. I don't fully understand that. It has the silent fuel pump. It also comes with like elbows for these. So whenever you are attaching your ducting and stuff, you have the option of running it like that, which is nice because then your hose isn't kinked right away. So it makes it a little easier to run it up to your tent. And then the actual intake back here also has an elbow, which is nice. So you can plumb that however you want. If you're actually running it to a little camper and you want to pull air from the inside of it and then pump it back through, you could do that with 2 different ducts. But you don't have to use those. It's just an optional thing that comes with, which is pretty nice. Even the muffler actually says LF Bros on it. The heater itself has LF Bros built into it. The N2 Pro is definitely the nicer of the 2 units. They're claiming that everything in it is an upgraded, better system. It even comes with a higher end exhaust that is similar to what I've seen from some of the European models, and just a few little small things. Also with this particular N2 Pro, you don't just get a box of stuff. You actually get a bag that has all your parts in it, has your wires in it, and they do both come, actually both models come with like a little duct. This one comes with 2 of them. And then it has all of your little adapters and however you're gonna run everything, your elbow pieces. It comes with a whole bag, and this bag's actually pretty nice, pretty sweet. So you can organize all your stuff. I have not done that yet, but I will here in the future. The N2 is $250. That is a very good deal, I think, especially since you're gonna be paying like 160 to 180 for some of the better cheap ones. This is such a better built unit in the fact that it has a leak-proof cap, seals the deal. So when you're comparing the N2 to the N2 Pro, $250, this is nearly $600. Identical heat on both of them. It has the controls on the front, it has the thermostat, it has an upgraded motor on the inside of it, and it also has a silent pump. So this is a very nice heater, but this is getting out of the cheap Chinese heater territory. Only time will tell if this heater is actually worth that much money, because if this thing turns off on me, even though I didn't have to pay for it for this review, I'm gonna be pissed off about it, because it is a nice product. It's an expensive product. So it's gonna take a while before I see any potential issues pop up, I'm sure. Right now it works just fine. So I think for the vast majority of people that are watching this heater is gonna be fine. Do you need altitude compensation? A lot of us probably don't, unless you're camping at like the ski mountains or something like that and getting out early on the slopes, because so many people are just not camping in that high of an elevation during the super cold months. And the other thing is you can fill it up with kerosene. Kerosene will do a few different things for diesel heaters. One, it'll clean them out, but the other thing is it'll run more efficiently at higher altitudes, even for ones that don't have the altitude compensation. So that's a benefit of kerosene. You're paying for it with the fuel, but it's better for the heater itself. So another thing that I've seen with both of these heaters is they don't come with enough hose. So you will have to buy some hose off Amazon. I'll link some, it's super cheap. The stuff that I've used is similar to what they send, but it's like coated with a black thing that's made for like a dryer. I think a lot of people use these. It is a plastic material on the outside of it, but it doesn't seem to melt. And then on the other thing is on the inside, it is just foil. So you're not like melting plastic into your air sort of a deal. But it's very similar to what they come with. And what they come with is nice stuff, but it's just not long enough unless you're setting it on the tailgate here. So another thing about the length of what's included is I would like to see an extended length of the thermostat cable, because when you put this directly on the ground, it won't quite reach into the tent. And at least in my case, maybe your vehicle's different, but my FJ, the tent sets even higher, so there's no way it would be able to do that. I discovered that this sits really nicely up on top of my e-taker battery, and then my muffler is raised a little bit as well. So it works nicely to elevate it a little bit and keep my exhaust off of the ground. And that's another thing, is both of these units, while they're better than other Chinese heaters, the exhaust is really close to the ground. The super cheap Chinese heaters, it's basically pointing at the ground, and I've had to drill holes in some of those to like basically bend the tube to where it doesn't do that. But I still have to put I've used a license plate actually underneath it to stop it from catching the ground on fire. You need like some sort of a barrier. These ones have an exhaust that's elevated just a little bit, but I still feel like it needs more. I have an idea for putting like fold out feet on the bottom of this, but we'll cross that bridge when I get there. So I think with all of these types of heaters, that's gonna be a challenge, is just fighting that exhaust. But this is a better designed exhaust than some of the other ones. So in a normal situation, when I have this in the tent, I do have my exhaust coming over this way, and then obviously I have the duct on, so it's not sucking up that exhaust and pumping it into the tent. So while these ones aren't perfect, and yes, this one is expensive, I did find that both of them used almost a whole tank trying to heat that little camper at night. So it is what it is. Because it's a 5 kilowatt unit, it's gonna use a little bit more fuel than the 2 kilowatt will, even if you're running it at the lower speeds, because the lower speed again is only 1.4 kilowatts. So with a 2 kilowatt heater, your low speeds would probably be somewhere about 0.5, I would imagine, something like that. So that's another disadvantage, but you will not be left wanting more heat out of this. So all in all, I am very happy that I accepted this heater as a review, and the fact that I got a recommendation to check it out. I was very intrigued by it, and once I got it, I've been very impressed by it. These are really badass heaters, I have to say. I do really feel like this is a solid design, and what's nice about the N2 Pro specifically is I can put the exhaust, once it's cooled down, back into its bag, have a nice little carry bag, throw this in the back of the truck, and I'm ready to go. So for those of you that are gonna use this with a van or a camper or a trailer maybe, this thing is pretty sweet with its thermostat. And you can disconnect it here, so if you need to run it through a wall, it won't be too hard to do that if you wanted to do a permanent install or semi-permanent install. I think for the vast majority of you, spend the extra 50 bucks and get something like this. Get the N2, because you're probably not at those high altitudes. Even though you might think you're gonna be up there, I really think you can get away with it. Maybe not 12,000 feet or something like that, but for most of your camping, this is gonna do just fine. Doesn't cost as much, has just as much output, and it's less than half the cost. So all in all, these are very impressive little heaters. They're heavy duty, they actually seem like they're designed to actually travel versus just being the cheapest stuff thrown into a package and sold to you at the cheapest price. So if you guys are looking for a diesel heater, I highly recommend you at least check these things out, read about them, read some of the reviews. I think there's gonna be very few people that are gonna be like, this is another cheap Chinese heater. Very high quality. The design of it is just incredible as far as being compact. And the leak-proof cap, man, they all need to have a leak-proof cap. I will be utilizing these heaters in the future. You will see these on the channel. I'm telling you, give these a look, read some of the reviews, see what you think. They're not that much more expensive, especially for this guy right here. This one, this is more of a dedication. I get it. Okay, so that is my review of the LF Bro diesel heaters. If you have any questions, drop them below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time. As always, thank you so much for watching, and click one of the videos in the corner to check out more of our adventure, off-road, and overland related content.